Evening. Before I turn things over to them, just a couple of housekeeping things. If you'd be so kind, please turn off your cell phone or silence or vibrate or just don't make noise. Masks are to be worn through the evening for everyone on staff and in the audience tonight. Signed books are already available at the register, but if you would like, Sara will be able to personalize them after the event. And lastly, we are recording tonight, so the recording will be available on YouTube after the event. Our interviewer for this evening is Sheelah Kolhatkar. Sheelah is a staff writer at The New Yorker, where she writes about Wall Street, Silicon Valley, economics, and politics. Her writing has also appeared in New York Magazine, The Atlantic, The Times Book Review, Bloomberg Businessweek, and other publications. She is the author of the New York Times bestseller, Black Edge, Inside Information, Dirty Money, and the Quest to Bring Down the Most Wanted Man on Wall Street. She lives in Brooklyn. She will be speaking with our featured author, Sara Woster. A painter and art teacher, Sara founded the Painting School in an effort to share her passion for painting with her community. She illustrated several children's books, and her animations, multimedia, and collaborative performances have been shown at numerous art venues, including the Hammer Museum, UCLA, and Franklin Artworks in Minneapolis. She has been granted a Jerome Foundation Emerging Artist Fellowship, a Franconia Sculpture Park residency, and a Brooklyn Arts Council SUCASA residency. Woster also has a creative writing degree from the New School. She has contributed personal essays to several anthologies and has written 2 middle grade books. She lives with her family in Brooklyn. Her new book, Painting Can Save Your Life, is part The Artist's Way, part Bob Ross, and welcomes readers into the vibrant world of this transformative art form to discover how painting can help you see the world in a whole new way. Weaving soup to nuts instruction on how to paint, from choosing the right materials to painting the human body, with her own story of discovering a passion for painting, Woster shares techniques for painters of all skill levels, playful exercises, tips on building creative community, and insights on how painting can cultivate mindfulness and a sense of calm in a stressful world. So you're in for something special tonight. Sara and Sheelah will join together in conversation, and then you all will have the chance to ask questions at the end. So please, without further ado, join me in welcoming Sara Woster and Sheelah Kolhatkar.
So first, I want to thank everyone for coming and just express how excited I am to be here with my dear friend Sara, and also my future painting teacher, because I've committed to taking her painting class this fall, so I'm excited. Yeah. So, so the title of this book, Painting Can Save Your Life, is kind of intriguing. It's open to many interpretations.
Yeah.
So can you just tell us, to start off, what this book is about?
It's about my own personal experience with painting and how it really has transformed every aspect of my life, from, you know, how I hang out with friends, how I work, how I feel healthy and balanced, kind of balanced, somewhat balanced. How I interact with every person and everything I do. You know, it's really it keeps me happy. I can tell when I don't paint for a while. It's definitely, everyone around me can probably tell. It builds my community. It does everything that I try and convince everyone it will do for them in their life. And I'm using myself as an example, and that's why there's memoirs scattered in, because I am trying to prove that what I'm saying is true based on my own experience.
So that was something I really found charming about the book, is the way you weave in little personal stories about growing up in South Dakota and your life and your family, in with these really practical elements about how to paint and how to get started and get over your fear. So can you just share with us how you first came to painting? How did you learn about it? When did you first start?
I come from a creative family in general. They're all farm people. Both my parents grew up on farms and cattle ranches, but they're very book heavy. Everyone plays an instrument. Like, it's very artistic and creative is a huge part of my entire life. But my grandma was a visual artist, and I use the term loosely. She was a terrible painter. If anyone's been to my house, I have some of her paintings up. And defining terrible by like a complete disregard for any visual element, rule, or like reality or color. Like, they're just really
She didn't have your
objectively
book.
bad.
She
She
didn't have
didn't
access
have
to
my
your
book. Oh yeah, it's too bad she's not alive. But beyond that, most people in my family didn't do visual arts, but I was really drawn, and it's kind of what we talked about earlier, of like, if you get criticized young versus if you get complimented young, it can lead you down one of two paths. Like, somebody can shoot you down at a young age and that's it. Or I think I was complimented. It was me, Jennifer Philippi, and Jennifer Richards were asked to design the program for the snowball, whatever, and suddenly I thought I was a good artist. And honestly, I feel like
Wait, so what stage of your life was this? How old?
third grade.
Third grade. Okay.
Yeah, and it could have gone the other way, like we've been talking about a lot, which is the term creative mortification, when you're mortified as a young person and that stops you from being creative for your whole life. And so I had the opposite. I was in a house that fostered anytime, like I'd say I want to learn how to do this, take a class, whatever, my parents would help with that, and it was encouraged. And then a high school teacher encouraged me, and then I went to the University of Minnesota to study painting and became just addicted and have done it ever since.
Can you remember the moments when you just felt while you were painting, this is something I need to have as part of my life in the future? Was there a particular painting you worked on,
Yeah.
project?
I can remember the first painting that I thought, oh, this is actually coming from a place that's not me learning the skills. And it was, I did study abroad in Greece, and I was working with oil bar, which I don't know if anyone's worked in that. It's amazing, very tactile, sensual, like you kind of blend. I'm sure it's completely toxic and probably now legal, but like in 91 when I was doing it, and it was a painting of bones, like driftwood and bones I had seen on a beach, and it was the first time it went beyond me following a lesson plan and learning the skills to create something that I thought was telling something about me, and that was a game changer. I think like when people get to that, and I hope the book gets some people there, when you get to the point where you're creating something that is revealing, I think that's when it starts to transform you and your life.
So you mentioned this phrase that I found kind of hilarious and tragic, which is creative mortification, which occurs when some kid like points at your drawing in elementary school and mocks it, or like holds it up and laughs at it or whatever, and we've all had some version of that. Mine involved baseball, actually, where someone made fun of my crappy baseball mitt. But anyway, and I never played another team sport ever again. I was so embarrassed. But okay, did that ever happen to you? It sounds like it didn't.
No, it didn't, but a lot of my students come in and they're like, I can't do this, like apologetic in the door, like, so-and-so told me I was terrible in 5th grade. And we were sitting in the green room, and I got a text from a friend that said that she had been told when she was how old did she say? She was like 3rd grade, that her circle, or maybe younger, her circle wasn't round and her square didn't have a heart, and that was it.
She would never be an artist.
She would never be an artist.
Her teachers.
Yeah, and so she's now got the book, and she's like, I guess I'll try, just not want to do it. But it's like, it just really is a terrible, crushing thing. And we were talking, hopefully teaching is better now, more enlightened and
More
sensitive, that they don't do that. But I'm sure there's still kids, those jerk kids in the room, like.
Yeah, the bullies are still.
Yeah, the art bullies.
The teachers are scared to say anything, but yeah, the art bullies are the more kids. So what do you say to someone who has some weird like micro trauma around creating something that was mocked when they were young?
I don't really say anything. Like, generally, they do pretty good painting the first time or two, I would say. I mean, people have taken the class. I feel like people do a decent painting, and you do one, and you realize, like, you don't really have to listen to what you were told in 3rd grade. There's also just a elitist kind of stigma with painting, like, that I don't feel like is attached to ceramics and some other things that, like, you have to be special to paint. You have to be, you know, trained in a certain way and whatever. And I don't believe that. And so I think also just getting beyond that sense that only special people can do, you know, that kind of art. Also getting past this idea that you're going to paint like Rembrandt, because I have painted for 30 years. I could never do a painting like that if I had the rest of my life to just do that. I don't have it in me, and I don't want it to do that. But like this idea of what a painting looks like is very ingrained in us. Like good, you know, the word good and great is.
Well, and you said your grandmothers were bad, so
I know I shouldn't have said that.
I was sort of like, oh my God, you're creatively mortifying.
Yeah, I'm totally
grandmothers, not even
in the crazy one. But they really are though. They're terrible.
I mean,
but I love them. They're my most valuable. I mean, I really value her paintings. Like, what would you grab in a fire? I would probably grab her terrible painting of a cow that is maybe a dog. I don't know. Like, I would grab it because it was made by her. She was passionate. You know, she touched it. She did it obsessively. You know.
Sounds like an heirloom. Yeah.
It's an heirloom. It's the kind of heirloom you have in my family.
So what makes a good painting then?
Oh, that's a good question. I think this is subjective. Everyone has a different idea. For me, it's I like tension in painting. I like tension in shapes or tension in subject matters, tension in color. I like a lot of heart in my painting. I don't like painters that are cool. I don't like that kind of art at all. I like story. I love story painters, like painters who are like doing really cool stories in it. So it's subjective. That's what I think is great. You might love like a minimalist, carefully done, taped, beautifully, you know, cautiously, thoughtfully made. Whereas I like really tend to like messier, emotional, dramatic stuff.
So I'm curious to know, so it's very fraught for people who are just starting out, I think particularly for adults, as we've just discussed. Do you notice any difference, this is a generalization clearly, but between, you know, men, women?
We didn't talk about this question.
Yeah, I started to surprise you with this, but I'm just wondering if the guys are as anxious and scared of failing at this as women.
I have very few men take my class. The men I've taught are through, I sometimes teach painting at an organization, an amazing nonprofit called Friends of Firefighters in Red Hook that provides emotional support, classes, you know, anything, you know, counseling, acupuncture, Reiki to the firefighters. And they reached out. I have a friend, or we have a good friend who works there, and she said, you know, I think a creative art would be a really great therapeutic ad. So we started doing. So sometimes male firefighters would take the class, but it was generally, I generally have, you know, people who identify as female, and so I can't do a comparison honestly. But what is interesting is a lot of those students are working mothers. I would say 90%. A lot of them have very intense jobs, really, really demanding jobs. And so I think they take the class for a couple of reasons. I think it's mindfulness. I think it provides a mindfulness experience not unlike yoga. I think their creative thinking that they get carries over into their jobs in a way that, I don't know if they're aware of it, but I would guess that it does carry over into my friend Monet is here who works in tech and AI, but she's also a musician, so I would imagine that one thing informs the other, and you probably wouldn't be as good at AI if you weren't studying music, right? I mean, I think there's a lot of that. These people don't maybe want to ever become professional artists, but they want to be better at what they're doing, and creatively doing creative hobby makes you get there faster.
Well, and it takes a certain amount of self-awareness, I think, to recognize that that would help you unless you have had some exposure. So, what are the benefits of learning to paint, do you think?
Yeah, mindfulness I think is front and center. Like it's when you're staring at a bowl of fruit and trying to get the color just right or the shape just right, you really have to be focused on that. You have to be just in that moment because otherwise you can't do good painting, and so it's really an escape I've had people say, oh my gosh, this 2 hours goes by so fast because you're really focused on the task at hand. Creative thinking totally helps. I totally believe painting more than some other ones is good at that. I also think it's really great for self-expression. I love ceramics. I have a friend here in the front row who's going to come out and make she loves ceramics. But I don't think ceramics in general provide you the same expression, storytelling, personal narrative options that a painting does. So there's that, like cathartic nature.
Throwing shade on the potters.
I'm throwing shade on the pottery industry. No, I've never done, I haven't done
Like your
ceramics.
hands in that mud.
No, I can imagine it's absolutely amazing and I'm going to learn how to do it someday.
So this idea of being creative and trying to sort of enhance your creativity has, I don't know how to quite describe it, it's become sort of trendy, like among like ambitious upper middle class parents. They're all overscheduling their kids in Mandarin lessons and stuff, but they're also trying to make their kids creative and put them in art classes, and it's just sort of comical. And people in the business world, which I focus on a lot, are also obsessed with this, which is also hilarious, even in these hierarchical big like corporations, because I think they think it will make them money somehow.
Yeah.
But they're not sure. But I was curious to know, why do you think there's this huge interest in this idea now? I mean, is it something about, does it reflect?
You mean in the business?
Maybe let's start with. I think the two things are connected. I think it's related to some kind of anxiety about people's future, and about careers, and like, parents have this towards their kids. They want their kids up to be successful.
I blame the IBM study that came out a few years ago because it listed like what's the #1 trait CEOs look for. It was like creativity, and everybody ran to the art store and like grabbed some markers and sent their kids to I mean, I would think that, I hope people are sending their kids to art classes because it's good for their soul, but you're probably right, it's probably good for their CV. But it is good for their soul, and it's great for them. Yeah, it's definitely business. It's a catchphrase and like a trendy idea that creativity is what makes a great leader, but it's probably true. It's probably true. They're probably better leaders because they're probably more creative and they're probably better at finding solutions and problem solving. So I think there's a lot of truth to it. Do I think that's why you should take a painting class? I guess I don't care why someone takes a painting class because the end result's going to be the same. They're going to get something beyond a job, doing a better job in their PowerPoint. They're going to get something out of it that hopefully will make them care about using that talent beyond their office.
So can something make you creative? Like, can you work hard and become creative? What's the, what are the inputs? What are the inputs to get that result?
Work hard.
I mean, I don't know what makes you creative. Like, how do you think that works? Because people are constantly trying, and they do, they think certain things will make them more creative, which is.
I mean, we're all creative. We're
Like
all
we're
born creative.
that.
It's removed from us. So I think maybe you become better at creative thinking, or better at a technical skill related to the art you want to make. I don't know if you can become more. I mean, one of the famous artists, Giselle, you probably know, said I'm basically working backwards in time to paint like I painted when I was 5. I can't remember what it was, Picasso or something. Picasso. And it's like, we are all born creative. It was snuffed out of us as long as a lot of our good stuff was. And then you're trying to, I guess, tap back into that. But yeah, I would say you could get more creativity chops and you can get more technical skills, but I think you're just enhancing what we all innately had at some point.
So it's like peeling back,
Yeah.
peeling things off.
Yeah.
I guess. I love to make fun of the corporate culture, and I mean, I'm aware that there is this huge obsession with having, trying to foster that in different companies among employees, and even in places that are very, everyone, the job is sort of soulless, and people are in meetings or Zooms all day long, and it's like profits and P&L and all this stuff. but they think that
They think a ping pong table is gonna
yeah, or like an off-site. I don't
Yeah.
know what that is, but I hear it's something that people do.
I love how
They
much
do
you
an
can't
off-site.
stand.
No, but I don't know. No, I'm sure off-sites are great, but
No, I totally.
that's where all the sexual harassment happens. It's great. It's really helpful. But no, so I'm just curious to know what do you think they're doing? Yeah, so a lot of them will install like a lounge or a fish tank or a ping pong table.
Yeah. Or like the Zappos office were famous. Remember that was like famous for having like nap rooms. You know,
Yeah,
to me
well,
it's like wait,
nap
all the
rooms are a good
things
idea.
are distractions instead of like huddle rooms, like all these things instead of what we talked about earlier today is this idea of like because of all this creative mortification, there's a lack of creative confidence, which is what David Kelly from IDEO talks about all the time. Is people have great ideas and they're too self-conscious and embarrassed to say them in their meetings, and to cure that with a huddle room or like a ping pong table doesn't make sense to me. Like you need to create, and I'm going to disagree with you on an offsite. Like, sorry, that's a good idea. I think if you did an offsite where the result is they're for the first time in years thinking, oh, I'm a creative person, because I feel like the problem is, right, so we're being told that the skills that matter is creativity when like half the population thinks they're not creative because of their background. Like those people then feel like they can't voice their opinion. We had talked earlier about, I don't know who is obsessed with Max Brooks like I am, Mel Brooks' son. Anyone? Of course you are. And he's a zombie expert. He's considered the world's leading zombie survivalist end days expert. And he has a really great video that you should watch. He spoke to the War Institute in West Point about it, and it doesn't sound like it'd be funny, but it's really funny. And he talks about, I wish I would have watched it to like rehash what this. So he talks about that you can be creative, but if someone doesn't champion your creative idea, then it's completely pointless because it's not going to be heard, or it's just going to die on the table. And he talks about the gun that like Mel Brooks fought World War II with was like the most effective gun that's ever been made, and it was made by the design was a guy in prison for a bootlegger who was in prison for 30 years. And somebody in the prison heard his idea and trusted him and gave him the right to go into the metal shop of the prison where he was and make the gun. And his whole point is like this guy like is the hero of this too. Like you can have these creative ideas, but if people are too scared because they think they suck to vocalize them, like we've all worked. I mean, I've worked in offices and it's not. I would ask you so. In your personal experience, when you were working for the bank, I don't know how many you worked for, before you started writing, did you notice once you started writing, were you more confident with your creative ideas in a meeting? I know it was a while ago.
That is interesting. I was going to ask you about writing later because writing for me is kind of torturous. Like it's so anxiety producing. But I guess you're right that once you reach a certain level of facility, then I did,
It did translate into your day job.
A little bit.
Yeah.
There wasn't a ton of overlap. But I mean, okay, so I worked at 2 hedge funds. Like, I cannot think of 2 less creative environments, although many hedge funds do seek that out, and they will, I think for different reasons. I think they think that it, like they want people with like interesting perspectives or who will kind of diversify the point of view and the opinions in the office when they're like testing ideas. So that's good. But they want people who are competitive and killers, and they think if you've developed a really strong talent in some extracurricular activity that you might be like a real go-getter and
really?
You'll make money for them. So that's kind of
Even
what drives
like
it.
Poetry?
Possibly. I mean, some of them were very eccentric. I don't know, but the ones I worked in were not. I mean, there was a lot of cracking jokes during the day, like the way surgeons do when they've got somebody like open on the table. But there was no. I mean, I have never been more terrified to share my true opinion, just share what I actually thought of that stuff. So I don't know. I think that they would benefit from that because there's so much like groupthink
Yeah.
in that industry.
I mean, this is like a whole industry. I mean, this is, I'm sure there are 40 amazing books in here about this topic, which is super fascinating because I personally don't care so much, right, if Goldman Sachs nails that or not. But I do care wildly if my political party doesn't get better at it soon, or Greenpeace doesn't, you know, like I'm super upset that the collective, there's a test called the Torrance creativity test, and while IQ scores have been going up in America for years, since what, 1990 I think it was, and the creativity, the Torrance scores have been plummeting, and there's, I'm sure, endless. And in theory, I don't, like I said, I don't really care if Goldman Sachs has that impact, but I care deeply about the fact that we have, you know, 2,800 days to get emissions down, and the collective creativity capacity is pretty bad. So that interests me. And so in terms of organizations and creative group power, I'm very interested in that. I'm not sure my small painting school is going to impact, but if anyone knows anyone at Greenpeace, they can take my class for free.
Well, so what would you recommend to Greenpeace or your political party, or even like you know, a World Bank or whatever?
Yeah, I think everybody should step up. Like I think nothing could hurt to have creative practice. I'm trying to think of like a global movement to improve something in the way we work, or, you know, that is equivalent, but I can't, but there must have been something. I don't know, when everyone learns CPR, I don't know, it's like we need to all do something, because I think collectively we need a stronger creative brain power, but.
So what would they do in their office? Like, instead of a ping pong table, or, you know, what do you think they should have there?
Well, I think I wrote a piece for Fast Company that I think that they should, I think just like your perk is your office, is your gym membership, I think they should be paying for ceramics classes. I think they should be bringing in writing teachers to do workshops. I think they should be, Weebly or one of them has like a jam room or something with all these instruments, and you can go in and play. I think Spotify has an arts and crafts room. Like, there are places that are doing actual creative environments instead of just like huddle rooms or whatever. They're like encouraging, give gifts. Like, I think companies should be giving gifts of classes, creative classes, and like push everyone out, push them into that. Because there's also the aspect of community building, which is huge for me, and I love watching my students become friends and like just having discussions with people that they wouldn't have met otherwise, and they go deep, you know. When you're working on art together, you go pretty deep. Like, you know, it builds community. Like we were talking about, I'm obsessed with The Strategist in Caldwell or Carol's. I think it's the world's coolest place, and I feel like we need so many more of those places for all of everyone to geek out and whatever they want to geek out about collectively, and including art.
So just like a big tinkering room.
Yeah.
I feel like such a big obstacle for this kind of thing, just even on a personal level, is the mess.
Oh yeah.
I don't know, it's maybe part of being a mom, but it's just,
No,
it
it's
makes
messy.
a freaking mess.
Yeah.
Like, it has to be cleaned up, and you stain stuff, and like gets on your
Yeah.
clothes, and your kids are like, their red hands, and it's just, I
Just
don't
send them
know.
over to my capacity messy.
Yeah. But it's
Everyone's
hard.
laughing because they're like,
I would love, you know, it'd be so nice to have a dedicated room where they
Yeah.
could just make a big mess there, and
Yeah.
everyone could go down there and paint. It's
well,
hard.
there's like what, a huge excess of office space now. Why don't we turn some of that into, offices can turn them into places like that, or like, I mean, there's really nothing but benefits to helping the people that you work for with to find creative hobbies. There's no downside. I cannot think of a single downside to having somebody fall passionately in love with. Well, I mean, there's studies that they're actually more happy at their job. They're more likely to say positive things about your company because their overall mindset is just happier, you know?
And is that because of the, because for me, I mean, my minimal experience, I was more into drawing earlier in life, but I did find it very meditative.
Yeah.
It was one of the few things that would take my mind off of like the constant just ruminating and worrying and the news and whatever.
Yeah.
So we know a lot more now about
Yeah.
how that helps your mental health.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. They have so many studies about mental health, blood pressure. It helps people through illnesses. In fact, World Health Organization, Mayo Clinic, pretty much every major health organization during COVID, the mental health strategy included creative arts because there's was it the WHO? It's the Well-Being Index. They said yes, yoga is great, running is great, whatever. Nothing compares to creative arts. Like the impact of your mental health. So everyone was like, start doing, and it happened. Everybody started doing something. I feel like most people I know started some sort of creative thing during COVID. But yeah, and I mean, we talked about the health benefits. Like I've had a few health issues that one is pretty funny, but one's not funny. But painting helped me through, and they have proof that cancer patients heal faster if they take painting classes or art classes. They play. I recently had medical stuff, and you'd walk into the room, and they'd ask you what your favorite music are, and whatever. And I was forced to sit down with a musical therapist who reminded me of the nun in Airplane, and I couldn't stop laughing, and it wasn't funny. And I was like, she didn't know I was laughing, but I was like, she was just like the nun in Airplane. But yeah, I mean, I think they're inserting arts in a very stodgy, not innovative places, because it's just general fact now that painting can save your life. It's not hyperbole. No, it just helps your health, it helps your blood pressure, it helps your everything.
So this idea that there's a crisis among, I guess this is more focused on younger people, that they can't think creatively, or I don't know, that this is a struggle for them, or it's just not prioritized, or people are teaching to tests rather than, thinking, critical thinking and creative thinking. I was curious to know why you thought that was happening. The diagnosis?
I actually, in the kids' classes I've done, I don't see that. I think they're brilliant. They do, I'm not going to say better paintings, but just much more free, much more creative than the adults do. So I don't see that, but I believe the research. I don't know, I mean... But
young adults say.
Oh, young adults.
Just entering the workforce, younger...
There was a big shift. For one thing, there was a big shift on the federal level to I think it was during Obama administration, to shift from the ratio of nonfiction versus fiction that was read.
Oh, I remember this totally, yeah.
And I think it went along with this whole Silicon Valley thing of focus on science and kind of less on the liberal arts. And I don't know, reading a novel's got to be a different experience than reading a book on the Mississippi River.
It's a little heartbreaking seeing them bring home all this nonfiction little booklets, and I'm like, it's not even great nonfiction. They're too little to
Lucky
be...
your kids come into the house with books.
Yeah. Well, so okay, have you thought about the screen invasion into? Everybody's just this all the time.
It's must have. Although Minecraft is super creative. Minecraft is. I think it is. Maybe I'm dumb because I want my kid to sometimes play Minecraft.
So you can paint.
So I can paint. So I can be creative. But I think I don't know. I think that there are some tech tools that are super creative, but a lot of them are not. I don't know. What is it replacing? Because I would go home and make cookie dough and watch 7 hours of after school specials. So that's not the most creative. I don't know if that's better or not.
Yeah, but one of the reasons people say they love Stranger Things is because it's a pre-screen vision of childhood. They're all out biking around having little adventures.
Yes, that is true. I love it. Yeah.
And now everyone's at home with their headphones and.
I don't know, maybe the test is flawed, maybe the test is stupid, we need a new test, I don't know, maybe the questions we're asking are relevant to creativity in the 80s, and there's a new creativity that's emerged, I don't know. But so just don't tell me it's screen time, okay? Just kidding.
It is screen time.
I know you think that.
So, okay, I can't remember if it's in your book or you just shared this with me, but Tim Wu wrote an op-ed about hobbies and how am I getting this right? And that how people had become so ambitious about their hobbies that they'd lost the benefit of providing this outlet that you're talking about?
I don't know about that, but I totally believe it.
Or I saw that somewhere.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
maybe
totally
that was
believe
my-
it. Like, yeah. I mean, yeah, because you don't want to be like a perfectionist about your creative hobby. That kind of
I know,
defeats
but
the purpose.
there's this weird sense now that if you get into cooking, you're supposed to be like a fantastic gourmet cook and like, I don't know.
Especially if you live in Brooklyn, I feel like.
Yeah. Maybe Brooklyn is the problem, actually.
Maybe Brooklyn's a problem. Competitive and Instagram. I mean, all of it. Like you put it all out on display, and like it's judged in a way that it didn't. My grandma was not. I mean, she was hanging it up in her house.
The people I know who are into music, kind of as a hobby, who play in bands or like, have little concerts or jam sessions or whatever, just once a week, I see those people getting so much happiness and joy from that, and I did wonder if you had thought about that, whether there's a connection between playing music and painting. It seems like a very similar.
Yeah, I think there must be a very similar. Although lucky musicians, I'm so jealous of anyone that's in a collective like that. Like to create as a group, I'm just so envious. Like you can't really paint as try. I think I'll try. But like I'm so envious of people that, and maybe that's part of the appeal of ceramics, right? Because you do go into a setting and you put your stuff in the kiln all together, and then you take it out all together. I can see that collectively that would be exciting. But yeah, music, I bet you music functions in the brain in a very similar way because it's unlimited options. There's like a freedom to it that isn't in some other arts. Like knitting, it's pretty restricted, right? You have to follow the music and painting kind of go off.
Well, and you're just you cannot think about anything
No, you
else
can't think
while you're
about
playing
anything
your instrument. Like,
Yeah.
your fingers would stop moving,
I've been trying to learn guitar for like 30 years. I'm terrible.
That sounds like the wrong attitude.
I know. I'm horrible at music.
So we are going to take questions shortly, but before we do, I wanted to ask you, so what do you recommend to someone who is like a little anxious about the mess in their house, but would like
Anyone
to
in particular we know?
just a hypothetical
Asking for
worry
a
warrant
friend.
mom, yeah, who I know, who is very resentful about cleaning up after other people, who, but who wants to try this?
Yeah.
Like, what's like a little baby step that you would suggest?
I always tell people to get like a fishing tackle box, right? You put everything in there and then store it away. I get the cheapest tablecloths at IKEA, and that covers your whole table. Don't let your kids come near you because you're not going to get paint all over yourself because you're not a toddler.
Or even
I
like a
would,
10-year-old.
or you're not me
Yeah.
or a toddler,
Yeah.
so I would get it. But yeah, no, I mean, you can totally contain it. You can compartment, and you can buy tiny little brushes and tiny little canvases, and it won't be messy. Besides, as a person, I don't think you would be a wild flamboyant. I think you'd be very
Uptight. You're asking for it. But anyway,
never.
that's okay. I won't take it personally. But so what do you say to people who feel, like it's an anxiety producing going into those Blick art supplies or whatever, Pearl River or Pearl, what's it called? The one on Canal Street.
That closed.
Anyway,
Arts and craftsmen.
Okay, see, you can see how
Yeah.
disconnected I am.
Like,
But-
what do you buy?
Well, what do you buy? And also the people who work in there are kind of intimidating. Like they're a little bit, they seem very cool. They're like cool art students
Yeah,
or
but if
something.
you were to say, like, I want to learn how to paint, they will be so excited and they'll help you. But if you don't want to do that, in the book there's like a whole, this is what you need to buy, this is what you need to buy. You can go online if you want to. But support your indie, but if you don't want to, you can go online. You can actually support your indie online, so.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true.
It's intimidating, no, it's totally, I mean, I say in there that like, they're like sex shops and like comic book stores and like record stores. It's like where the serious like zealots that go to work.
Even the Apple store can be like
And the
that.
Apple store, so it's intimidating to go to any of those places. I compare it to when Rob makes me go to the auto parts store.
Oh.
And I
that
have like
sounds
line drawings of parts, and I just like, it takes me 3 hours to get the courage to like ask anyone to help me because I know they think I'm a moron, and I'm like, can you find this?
Well, Seth has told me, like, make sure you tell them that your husband will be coming to pick this stuff up. Your husband's going to be picking up the car. Like, they cannot just swindle you because you're clueless. Anyway, I'm surprised Rob would send you like a lamb into the.
You know, it's intimidating. But so I get it. I get the pain of the art store. I get it.
So there's a lot. So in a way, it also, this is a bad comparison, but it reminds me a tiny bit of skiing because like skiing, downhill skiing is fun once you're on the mountains, sort of. You don't injure yourself, but there's like a huge hump to get over to get there. Like you got to get all the stuff, and you got to get up really early, and it's freezing and it's dark, and like you get kids in the car, and like all of those putting on those boots, and it does feel like there's a similar little
But you
mountain.
go because you know it's going to be so awesome, right? Because you, right? Is that why you go?
I go to keep my children off screens. I don't know why other people do
I don't ski, so I don't get the appeal of it anyway.
No, they will do something outside all day that's not with
I
no
would go to a
screens.
lodge all day. Like I would happily sit.
Yeah, the lodge would be better.
Yeah. I would say that, again, I mean, if you're looking at the people who just come to my class, it's very hard for them to get to my class. They are really extended people, like with intense jobs, and most of them have children, and it takes a lot for them to get those 2 hours. And I really appreciate it and value that, but I think they do it because it is community, it is mindfulness, and it's like, you know, you can find 2 hours, you know, to make a special Sunday dinner, you know, or so, you know what I mean? Like, that's because you value that, and that adds to your life. Skiing adds to some people's lives, you know, that it's worth it, all that hassle, and, you know.
Well, and I think the painting class falls into the wellness category, like you're doing something for yourself.
Yeah.
And it's,
And
but
then
it
you
is
have
hard
to
for
do
people
more.
to do that,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah, 100%.
So are there questions at this point? And there may be 0 questions, but
Yes, Robbie.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. You're next.
Go ahead. Oh, okay. Do you think that digital art and that like digital painting, sketching, drawing kind of fosters the same creativity or things that traditional painting does, or do you think that it's kind of 2 separate things?
No, 100%. I
well,
think that,
did everyone hear that question?
yeah, sorry.
Yeah, okay. Because I could repeat it. Just whether digital art is of the same, so it has the same
100%.
effect.
I think the only thing you're missing is the tactile experience of using your hands, you know, and getting off tech. But come over, Caroline, I'll paint with you.
So Beeple is legit.
Please don't talk about the record.
I'm gonna tweet whatever you say.
No, but
You
don't
think
care about
Beeple is the Picasso of our time?
No.
No.
It's a
Okay,
hard
Beeple's
pass,
not.
no.
Okay.
But no, that's not because of that it's digital though. It's because he's
Because it's Beeple.
cynical. I don't like cynical art. So
Yeah.
I like, if you're doing digital art that's about wonderful topics, like it's the same thing. You express yourself. It's probably even more fun, I bet, if you like were skilled in digital stuff than painting. But I do think there's something about the, you know, tactile quality. Making a mess. Yeah, don't go to her house and paint.
No, there's a reason kids love it to make a big freaking mess.
Yeah.
No, I think it feels really good.
It feels really good.
There was another hand.
How do you, like, this is a little bit about like the Brooklyn competitiveness, and how do you, what words do you have for someone who is like, I have an idea of what I want it to look like and what I want it to be like, and then, you know, experience them when I do paint, it's nothing like what
Yeah.
and then you just sort of drown in frustration, or like, never mind, I'm not a good
Yeah.
painter.
Well, I mean, I'm so sorry. You're here.
I'm gonna even hold it if you want.
Yeah, I'll just hold it. I would say, oh, did that not work before? Alright, lesson learned. I would say, I think that's probably the biggest problem in painting is you can't jump out of the gate and do like a painting of the Palace of Versailles. You just can't. There's just literally no way. I guess there's child prodigies that do it, but like if you're a normal person,
And I think, like, in the painting classes, I do a very simple skill progression, right? So, like, you start where you really can't fail, you know, with shapes and stuff, and then you go. And for some people, that's frustrating because they don't want to do maybe, you know, fruit and then flowers and then, you know. But here's the thing, painting is not, I think everyone can be good at painting. I don't think painting is for everyone. Just like I don't think needlepoint is for everyone, or I don't think screen printing is for everyone. I don't think music is for everyone. And I think people give up and think they're not artists, but really they're just not watercolorists. They're ceramicists. So painting does have a steeper curve because you have to learn skills. But I think, I would say to that person, keep trying if you do want to paint, because you could eventually make some facsimile of like what you have in mind, but if it's like a Rembrandt, you probably, I'm just gonna be honest, you probably won't ever make it running. Sorry. Sorry, Ronnie. Good thing you got a career to fall back on.
Yeah, don't quit your day job.
Don't quit your day job.
Yeah, as my father used to tell me every single day. Yeah. Any other questions?
Hi, Carla.
Hi. What about like sharing art when it's like painting or drawing? Like, do you find it's more meaningful when it's shared? I mean, there are things like writing that can be like so personal, like you don't want to read your writing to everyone all the time.
Yeah.
But like, do you find that art like this is better when it's shared, or like, is it more or less personal than some other media?
That's an interesting question because there's actually like a philosophy, I think it's officially a philosophy called, my friend left who's a psychologist. It's called the beholder's syndrome, and it believes that an artwork is not fully done its circuit, its loop, until it's viewed by someone, it's beheld by someone. And so that was really painful for me for a long period of time when I wasn't showing, and I was just like stacking up artwork. Like my grandma, it's all going back to my grandma Carlos. And then it was really painful that I was not doing, like, it wasn't real artwork because nobody saw it. So I'm a big believer in sharing because I think no one's as harsh as the painter is, and people are so glad to see it, and you never know. I was just like reading Bill Murray, like he said a painting saved him when he was suicidal. Like you never know what impact your art will have on someone or what it'll, you know, lead them to do. So I think sharing is caring.
Questions?
Yeah.
In the back.
Can you talk about the difference between drawing and painting?
Sure. As a painter, I'm very biased about. No. Yeah, drawing is amazing. I love drawing. Here's the difference in what I'm doing and versus if somebody goes to art college, right? If you go to art college, you are going to do foundational courses that are built, or if you go to a students' league or somewhere really legitimate, you are going to do a series. You're going to draw a long time before you're going to be able to paint. Like they won't even let you, and it's really cool because drawing is just the foundation of all of it, right? But I personally don't think you need to do that, and I think it's really a barrier for a lot of people that I just chose to get rid of, to think you have to draw before you can paint, because a lot of people can't draw, but they can do really cool shapes and colors and whatever, but they couldn't draw like these 3 folding chairs for years. And so I don't want people sitting there trying to draw folding chairs when they could be painting like a really cool abstract landscape, you know. There's probably a more official definition of what to do, but that's what I got.
Yeah, don't let it block you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other questions? I have a kind of a last one. I was just curious about the process of putting this book together and all the writing, which some people think is a creative outlet, but I find to be torturous and misery. But I see people like by the lake, you know, upstate, like journaling, and I'm like, oh, what's wrong with those people? But so, I don't know, a lot of people think that, I mean, it's a different type of writing, obviously. They're just like making stuff up. It's just different. But how did you find the writing process versus painting? Yeah. Was it hard for you, or?
Oh yeah, writing's so hard. Like writing's just it's just a different beast. Like editing's hard, it's hard. But I really like writing. more than, it sounds like way more than you do. Which is,
It's not being hard to achieve that, actually. But
I like writing a lot. So that, but it was hard. You know what was really hard? It was writing the technical stuff about painting. Like, I just have done the classes like in my head and little videos I make. And so to sit down and go, okay, how do I tell them to use this brush? How do I tell them to put this little dab of paint in this little, so that part was really challenging for me because I have not done that before.
so it's intuitive for you, the teaching of it, but
Yeah,
the
it was just,
explaining it
yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
it's not.
I can explain it in real time when I'm looking at everyone's stuff, but like figuring out, it's kind of like, I don't know, like baking, I don't know, or something like, yeah.
Cool.
Thank you, Sarah and Sheelah. We have signed copies of Painting Can Save Your Life, How and Why We Paint, available here at the register. Thank you both for coming tonight.